So I was thinking about solidarity. When I was growing up, I think there was a lot more solidarity between people, between neighbors, between family. People would show up uninvited, just saying, "What's up? How do you do?" In times of plenty, fruit or whatever, they would come. Hey, do you want this? Do you want that? I have too much. I have too much. Do you need help with this? Do you need help with that? You see, people was a lot more selfless. I think it has to do a bit with history, or the history of this country. So we had a dictatorship since 1930 up until 1970. This guy was invited to take over the economy of the country because there was lots of changes in Europe, and nobody knew how to do anything with his new economy. So the guy stepped in and never left power. Only when he passed away, things gone back to somewhat liberty and freedom. But that didn't last long because the ones in charge sold the country back to the EU. So independence didn't last that long. But during this long dictatorship, the guy was very conservative, very turned to church and farming. So 80% of the population was living in the countryside, and there was still lots of people who had, um, deals, contracts with landowners. They would, take care of the land and pay rent, not in money but in products, in produce. And so that was still big, and most population had a yard with animals, chickens, pigs. Everybody had a pig. Everybody. When I was 5 or 6 years old, all my neighbors had a pig. It's something that was common, and it was a recycling bin. You threw everything in there, and the animal just turned cellulose and scraps into meat and fat. So it was like a recycling thing. And everybody had tons and tons of trees with fruit and vegetables and legumes, and it was little things that we actually needed from the supermarket. But then the regime collapsed. Oh, and another thing, the regime was the first to implement school for free. Yeah, 4 years of school was for free, so that everybody in the country could learn how to read and write, do calculations, learn a little bit history, geography, that sort of thing. And if you wanted university, then you had to pay, right? But that was something that didn't exist. If you wanted to learn how to read and write, you had to pay, or if you had someone in the family that could teach you for free. But otherwise, it was the regime, first in history that kind of gave the population the opportunity to have at least 4 years in school for free. Uh, Later, when we started participating in the EU, it prolonged from 4 to 6, from 6 to 9. Now it's 12. You see, the further we started adopting the models, the education model from abroad, the more close we got to them, and I suspect it is actually the curriculum that turned people away from solidarity. Little by little, people became more, you know, um, what's the opposite of selflessness? I can't remember right now. Selflessness. Um, Became more greedy, I suppose, for money, and they were not, voluntarily giving up their time for free. Everybody kind of expected to be compensated, and I suppose it has to do with the schooling system. Another thing, as people was kind of forced to stay in school longer, and this idea that if you become middle class, college, you'll be, on a different hierarchy. You will have, uh, perception points, because there's people that think they are better than others if they get a degree. Yes. What's the expression? I can't remember right now. It's status points. There you go. They get more status than others. And if you ask them, hey, can you help me change a tire? They'll be like, oh, I am too educated to get my hands dirty. Even if you paid me, I wouldn't do it. There's this arrogance about people nowadays that is, hubris. I think it's hubris. It's stupid. It doesn't make any sense. So the world also started being run by companies, and government is a company. It's a private slash public company, but they're interested in what? Administrative work, in money, in making profit, mostly for themselves and their friends, right? Then you also have private corporations taking over, banks taking over, private banks, public banks. Everybody, wants a piece of the action, and then there's this division in society nowadays that, if you are educated, you kind of become part of a different caste, and you cannot, help someone change a tire, fix their rooftop. You cannot do those things. It's below you. So some people, when they finish school, they rather go and not work, or go abroad and try their chance, than to try another job. You see, they rather migrate than to try a different job. So they are just too educated, to be treated like that. So in the past, before the curriculum completely brainwashed people, you know, in general, people was a lot more solidarity with each other, a lot more selfless, and there was this complicity in the good sense. Um, People would watch each other's back. Well, now it's the opposite. People are constantly trying to stab each other in the back. And I think this competition, this, came from the curriculum, and competition for work. People at the age of 12 are being interrogated. What are you going to do with your future? Which university are you going to? Children still, and they're already putting a lot of pressure. And you gotta study, you gotta do this, that, and the other. And we all know that studying is a frontal lobotomy, pretty much. People get out of the system completely lobotomized, especially the ones who have to go through medicine or lawyer. Um, Now that companies, private companies, society is being run like, in a way, to please, the board of the actions, the people who own the most actions in the board, and bonds, and whatnot. Yes. um, the workers, are their slaves, and the board only makes decisions that benefits them, and they couldn't care less about the workers. So there's this connection, between people. So if you go on the phone or face to face with someone, it kind of feels like they don't want to do their job. They're like, hey man, could you help me here? And they're like, hey, it's this, that, and the other, and aren't you? And they're like, oh, I'm gonna move one foot, and then I'm gonna move a hand, and they're like, hey, aren't you afraid of getting fired? And no, I'll just be replaced by another, robot, because giving a damn is just not worth it. They don't pay you enough. They give them minimum wage, and it's temporary work, and they will get rid of them in the next couple of months. They just rotate the personnel. They don't want people to get attached to create roots, because if they do, then they have to raise their pay. So people don't want to do their work. and situations between neighbors. Hey man, do you help me do this, that, and the other? And they start calculating what they learn in school. If I plant some potatoes, the time, the effort, no, it's not worth it. I'd rather buy them at the supermarket. You see, they calculate, and they prefer to buy them at the supermarket because it's too much effort. But ironically or stupidly, I don't know, then they might pay, you know, um, a membership at the gymnasium to stay in shape, right? And I'm like, yeah, if you had a small yard, you wouldn't need a gymnasium, man. You wouldn't go to the gym, to pump some iron. You wouldn't need that, or run in one of those moving carpets. Just work. And contact with the earth, I think, is what's missing. Most people go crazy on the cities because they are disconnected from the world, disconnected from the natural order, from Mother Nature. And I think when people get isolated too long from Mother Nature, they start getting dysfunctional. So there's a wave of people that don't want family. And they are mainly, in the system or in the corporate system or in cities or whatnot. And those are the areas affected, right? Maybe it's this disconnection from nature that's, leading people not to reproduce. Who knows? We need to go back to the root, go back to the source. My grandparents, they lived in a farm. It wasn't theirs. They paid rent. And my grandfather and grandmother, they raised a family of 10, no problem. No problem. Nowadays, people are struggling. Oh, it's too expensive to raise a child, one child. What? No, it's not. People have become, uh, what's the expression? I can't even characterize. I would say that they don't have a spine anymore, because it's not a question of money or whatever. Whenever things happen, you deal with it, you know, you deal with it, and that's it. I think people have become too afraid. And of course, now there's plan A, plan B, plan C in case of, pregnancy, and you can get rid of it. And you're like, oh, I escaped one. Oof, I dodged a bullet, that sort of thing. But in the past, people just deal with it. And not everybody was expected to become, uh, um, uh, I don't know, super smart, high status person. No, I think everybody nowadays wants a child and expects too much of them as well. In the past, people had 10 kids, and they're like, I don't expect anything out of them. They're all dumb, dumb, dumb. They're all tarded, and I don't care. There was no expectations. Amongst, all of these, there might be a genius amongst them. I just don't get it. Yeah. Everybody wants to have, you know, um, a genie. That's why they only have one or two. But that's pushing it. That's pushing it. And they expect out of them too much. Too much. They are forcing everybody into the universities. You're not supposed to be in the university system. Universities is for one in a million. But they kind of wanted everybody to go to the university, so they had to lower the standards. When you lower the standards, you are turning everything mediocre, basically. Mediocre. Here's just an example. Um, the medical system. If you want to everybody to have access to the medical system, right? You need to what? To make it cheaper. How do you make it cheaper? The service that you were supposed to have, you diminish it, right? In order to make it affordable. So everybody's got access to medicine, right? But it's not good quality. Of course it's not. It's the same with clothes, it's the same with everything. You have access to those things, but it's the mediocre version of what they used to be. Because good things need to be paid full price. You know, I don't know. So I think I'm gonna shut up now. Tell me what you guys think. Have a nice day.